Welcome to the Young Turks. I am your host, Cenk Uygur, and we have a big show for you guys. Lots of news. Jim Bunning is still holding things up, and he had an awesome confrontation with an ABC News reporter, which we'll share with you in a little bit. But unemployment, the transportation projects, it's unemployment extension, transportation projects, et cetera, all being held up because of Jim Bunning, the Republican senator from Kentucky, and some other senators that are quietly backing him in the Republican Party. And then disastrous news in financial reform today. And the system is so corrupt, it's sickening. We have details for you on how we've been sold out. It's an ongoing story. Meanwhile, in theoretically unrelated but completely related news, the Democrats can't figure out why they keep losing popularity. Yeah, I wonder. Okay, we will get to all of that and much more. The latest drama with healthcare reform. Is Obama finally going to ask for an up or down vote? Will he get it, etc.? That's coming up a little later in the program. But I want to start with the big earthquake in Chile. That was an 8.8, which is gigantic. And when I heard about it, I thought, oh no, that means there's going to be tremendous number of casualties in this earthquake. Now, as it turned out, so far, it appears there's terrible casualties, but not nearly as big as I had feared. Last report I saw was about a little over 700 people had died. Now, which is terrible, and that number might increase as we, try to dig through the rubble, etc. But in Haiti, 220,000 people had died, according to the latest estimates, on a much smaller earthquake, right? And so, in fact, to give you the numbers behind it, scientists say that the Chilean earthquake was 501 times larger than the Haitian earthquake. So, but not as much damage. So what's the analysis that most people are putting behind this? Like, well, Chile is a larger country, larger meaning richer country, and it has a better government and, more responsible leaders, et cetera, et cetera. You hear a lot of that, right? Now, the fact that Chile is richer, is that relevant? Yes, it is, okay? But there's more to that story, okay? So let me give you some of the other facts behind it so you get a sense of why there wasn't as much damage in Chile. First of all, it simply was further away from population centers. So it was 200 miles away from Chile's capital of Santiago. Now, 200 miles is a long way away, of course, whereas the Haitian earthquake happened right in the vicinity of Port-au-Prince with 3 million people in it. So, of course, it affected a lot more people. So that was a huge part of it. Second of all, and I hadn't seen this until today, it is estimated that the Chilean earthquake happened 21 miles underground and off the shore of the country in the water. And whereas the Haitian earthquake happened only 8 miles under the surface. So, of course, that's a huge difference because the closer to the surface it is, the more damage it causes. So that 21 to 8 mile difference is enormous, to the point that when you get to the actual results, the Haitian cities and towns experience what the U.S. Geological Survey calls violent to extreme shaking, and the Chilean towns only experienced severe shaking. Now, severe shaking is terrible, of course, but not as bad as what they got in Haiti. So when you look beneath the surface a little bit, it turns out, although the magnitude of the Chilean earthquake was much larger, the impact itself was less than the Haitian earthquake because of where it was and how far underground it was. Okay, now, having said that, yes, there was another factor at play here, which is that the buildings in Chile were built better. Now, there are 3 reasons why that's the case. One, since it's a richer country with more resources, it can afford to, build safer buildings in some ways, right? Number 2, they live close to tectonic plates and they know it, and they've experienced many earthquakes, so they know to be prepared for it, whereas Haiti has not experienced an earthquake near them in 250 years. So it came as a lot more of a surprise. So the government planned ahead in Chile where they did not in Haiti, and for some understandable reasons. And point number 3, what nobody talks about here, is the building codes. Now, this should be interesting to the right-wingers in this country, because building codes are government regulation. And in Chile, they said you have to build the building to code so that it sways with the earthquake, as an example, rather than crumbling during the earthquake. And since that was the law, and since it was regulated, a lot of the buildings did build to code and did survive. Now, some didn't because it was a massive earthquake. But that saved a lot of lives, whereas you did not have that kind of government regulation in Haiti, and the buildings collapsed. I guess Haiti had a free market system where they let the people building the buildings decide on their own voluntarily whether they should be able to withstand earthquakes or not. And the Chileans had a socialist system where the government demanded that the buildings be able to withstand the earthquakes. Which one worked out better? Like I said, there are a lot of different factors. Understand all those factors. Having said that, sometimes the government regulating turns out to save lives and turns out to be a fantastic thing. And look, I wanted to be clear. We're not always in favor of government regulation. It depends. Does it make sense or does it not? When you need building codes so they don't collapse in an earthquake, it makes sense. When you need regulation so that the banks don't collapse and then put the bill on us, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense in every case, but there are some cases where it definitely makes sense, unlike what the right wing in this country will tell you, where they say, free market, capitalism, government is evil, they never help. Those people are not capitalists, they're anarchists. All right. So, there's the Chilean earthquake for you. Now, we have another dangerous story here, because I'm afraid that this is a dangerous trend. Hazmat crews have been called into the IRS building in Ogden, Utah. Apparently, a couple of people, according to the NBC affiliate who took some aerial footage of it, 2 people have been removed from the facility in stretchers. White powder is being reported at the building in Utah. Again, it's another IRS building, which makes me very, very worried about a trend, given that somebody just ran a plane into an IRS building. Now, after that happened, Steve King, Republican of Iowa, came out and said, well, you know what? I've been trying to get rid of the IRS all this time, and it's terrible. And, he didn't directly condone the actual act of terrorism that Joe Stack did in that, but he did almost everything but. And we shared that video with you, and he was unbelievable in the way he seemed to support the actions of going after the IRS. And he said they don't belong in your kitchen, and I wish we could do away with them, etc. Now you see an old picture there of dogs checking boxes coming into that same facility in Utah, and then you saw the people being carried out in stretchers now. Now you have 2 attacks on the IRS buildings across the country. And yet we hear messages over and over again from the right-wing media against the government. Anti-government, anti-government, anti-government. They're taking your taxes and they're doing, wrong things with it, et cetera, et cetera. And, all the encouragement that we've talked about, and we shared all the different clips with you guys throughout this last year or so. And we need to find out more about this story, and we will, I'm sure, over the next couple of days. But if this is a second attack against an IRS building, this is unacceptable terrorism, and it should be called out for what it is. These are terrorist strikes against government buildings. So, when the Obama administration last time around said that the IRS attack was not an act of terrorism, I said that was outrageous and unacceptable, because they want to pretend, terrorism didn't happen on our watch. But when the right wing pretends it's not terrorism, and they get into this agreement here, because, look, in order for it to be terrorists, they have to be Muslims, right? So that doesn't suit their agenda, right? They don't want to call other right-wingers terrorists, so everybody just pretends it's not. Well, if this is really an anthrax attack or any other kind of attack and 2 people carried out on stretchers, something going on here, then we have yet another act of terrorism. We should call it by its name. And we'll see what the right-wing reaction to this is. We'll see if they tone it down at all or no. They're going to, keep on going, stoking those anti-government fires. They did it when Clinton was in office, and we had the Oklahoma City federal city bombing. We had the Olympic bomber etc. We had the huge growth in militia movements. Again, we had the same growth in the same radical right-wing group movements. And again, we have attacks against government buildings. Is it, what, no one else is seeing a trend here? And we're not like the right-wingers. My reaction to this isn't, okay, we need to do ethnic profiling. All right, let's grab all the, whoever looks like a right-winger or looks like, whether it's a Christian fundamentalist in some cases. Joe Stack wasn't, okay? The Olympic bomber was, the abortion doctor killer was, etc. We're not going to do ethnic profiling. That's ridiculous. But should we look into right-wing groups who might be planning violence? Of course! You do it the right way. You do it the American way, okay? If you have reasonable cause or probable cause, or you suspect someone of something, you get a subpoena. You go through a court order. You do an investigation. That's what we have the FBI for. That's what we have the Department of Homeland Security for. That you do it the right way, but you go after these guys if they're a danger, okay? And you don't go after them indiscriminately, and you don't spy on them without getting court orders. But we got to get a handle on this problem, because this is getting out of hand now. All right. Look, there's some good news today, too. Let me take a quick break here. Come back with good news. Young Turks. All right. We are ready, so let's go. And he just explained the whole coup to you, so I don't have to do it again. All right. Jim Bunning is still at it. Jim Bunning is the senator from Kentucky. He's a Republican, of course. And he has held up a $10 billion package in the Senate. He's single-handedly filibustering it at this point. He says that, by the way, what's in that, as we explained to you on Friday, the unemployment extension for 1.2 million people. They will now not be getting it in March as scheduled. Now, hopefully, they will get around Jim Bunning some point soon, and then eventually those people will get those checks. But for now, the checks are stopped. Okay, so if you're unemployed, sad day for you. Jim Bunning has held up. These checks are not theoretical, by the way. That he's held up the money that is going to go towards feeding, clothing, etc., the families of 1.2 million people across the country. Okay, now that's not all. It was also had money for the transportation department. This bill did to the tune of $190 million a day. So all those projects have been stopped in their tracks. Among the construction sites where work will be halted, a $36 million replacement of the Humpback Bridge on the George Washington Parkway in Virginia, $15 million bridge construction and stream rehabilitation in Idaho, $8 million resurfacing of the Natchez Trace Parkway in Mississippi, and the list goes on and on and on. And all this is stopped because Jim Bunning says, no, you're going to do it my way or you're not going to do it at all. Now, the extension of a lot of these projects is going to happen in the larger jobs bill that the Senate is going to take up on Wednesday. But they needed this bill so that the projects wouldn't stop and that the checks wouldn't stop, et cetera. And it was supposed to be a bridge to get to the real fix, right? Now that bridge has been blown up by Senator Bunning, and this has tremendous consequences throughout the country. And when asked about it, he had basically said earlier, tough crap, to a senator from Oregon who was a Democrat. And the one thing he was concerned about last week was he missed the South Carolina-Kentucky game, the basketball game that he was going to watch. But he's the one holding it up. But nonetheless, he's like, well, I can't believe you guys made me miss that game by not, the rest of you, not caving into my demands. So now here comes another interesting part. So what is Bunning demanding? Because this is causing a huge ruckus throughout the country for understandable reasons. Well, he's demanding that the $10 billion get paid for. Okay, you say, hey, you know what? That sounds pretty good. I agree with that, right? I want to balance the budget, pay as you go, et cetera. But here's the funny twist on that. Turns out he was perfectly happy with the jobs bill that Reid pulled earlier, the one we told you about, the one that was loaded up with tax cuts for some of the wealthiest corporations in the country. So it turns out it's not that he cares about the deficit, and he said it when he's defending his position. He said if Reid hadn't pulled that bill, and that was bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans were ready to sell out together to corporate America. If he hadn't pulled that bill helping my corporate friends, you know what? I wouldn't have had to do this. So if he's saying if you put tax breaks for the largest corporations and the wealthiest Americans back into the bill, then he's fine with it. Then he'll let go of this hold. You know, for a brief second there, I am too hopeful a guy. Because for a brief second I thought, Jim Bunning, he's retiring, he's a little different, right? And he did some good fighting against the Fed in some ways and against Bernanke, right? I thought, since he's retiring, you know what? Maybe he's taking like a populist stance, or maybe he's taking a real stance against the budget, etc. No, of course not. Even on his way out the door, fighting for corporate America to the last possible day. Now, ABC News caught up with him as he was about to get in apparently a senator elevator, and he did not take kindly to that. So let's watch that video.
So we just wanted to ask you...
Excuse me, this is a senator-only elevator.
Can I come on the elevator?
No, you may not.
Can you tell us why you're blocking this vote?
I already did. Explained it.
Well, what is the issue? And are you concerned about these people who are unemployed?
I've got to go to the floor.
Senator, could you just explain to us why you're holding this up? I'm sure you have an explanation.
Excuse me.
Okay, are you concerned about those that are going to lose their benefits?
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
This is for senators only, not for people asking me questions about what I'm holding up the benefits for millions of Americans. No, this is an exclusive elevator for senators only. It goes straight into the ass of corporate America. And I emerge out there and I go, what would you like? Now,
excuse me.
This was not caught on tape, but according to reports, he at one point gave the ABC reporters the middle finger. Stay classy, Jim Bunning. So until corporate America gets this pound of flesh, all you folks with your unemployment problems, too bad for you. All you that want the jobs built, to create jobs and to build infrastructure in the country, sad day for you. Pound of flesh, that's what they want. Okay, and pound of flesh they get. Look at this next story.
Excuse me.
Love that. You got to get that on this machine, yeah. Okay. Chris Dodd came out with a Senate proposal many months ago for financial reform that I really liked. And I remember coming on here and saying, oh, look at this. This is a strong package. It was stronger than what the House of Representatives had passed. And the House is generally more progressive. It was stronger even than Obama's proposals. And I thought, well, look at that. Chris Dodd. Okay. I like that. And of course, what has happened since then? How foolish of me to get excited. It got watered down and watered down and watered down, and now it is much weaker than the House version and much, much weaker than the White House version, which was already incredibly weak to begin with. So today we find out that Chris Dodd has said, you know, that independent consumer protection agency is supposed to look out for consumers. Not so much. Not so much. No. It will no longer be independent, according to the new proposal. It will be under the Treasury Department. And you know how the Treasury Department is at protecting consumers. And if it has regulations that it would like to enact, well, it cannot enact them. It must put them up as basically suggestions to the other regulators whose job it is to make sure that the banks are financially sound. Now, how do you think that's going to work out? So the guys at the Treasury, who've been covering for the Wall Street and the financial sector in the Republican and Democratic administrations, and whose job it is to protect the financial soundness of those banks, get to decide whether you're going to have your consumer protection or not. I'm going to guess you're not going to get that consumer protection. It jeopardizes the financial well-being of an important economic sector, la 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 la. Okay? But if that weren't bad enough, they rip away the authority to regulate banks under $10 billion of assets at all. Okay? So, and that's a huge part of the banking industry. So they can go nuts if they like. Consumers will not get protected by them. How about the ones that are not technically banks, like pay lenders that are in the financial industry, but that are not banks. Well, they've got a lot of senators in their back pocket. A lot of those pay lenders put a lot of money into the campaign contributions in the Senate. That's gone too. No, pay lenders will not be regulated. So those pay lenders sometimes have rates that equal 1,000% interest a year. 1,000% interest. But they will not be regulated. No consumer protection there because the Senate's hard at work protecting corporate America. So by the end, what we have, if this version is the quote-unquote final version that is presented and voted upon in the Senate, and remember Christa is the one in charge of presenting this version, it will be an absolute fraud upon the American people. It'll be an absolute joke. So, you know, New York Times wrote a great article about what you have to do to make sure that the economy does not collapse again. And they finally figured out what I've been saying for a very, very long time, okay? You know what it is? Let me give credit to the person who wrote it. It's Gretchen Morgenson, okay? It's the derivative, stupid. Of course, the credit default swaps. You don't need to have as much, they don't have as much capital requirements in credit default swaps, so they wind up taking these enormous risks with very little money to back it up. And guess how much it's been regulated so far? Not at all. No regulation. It's a ticking time bomb. I'm telling you right now, and then I'll come and do this video later and telling you, oh, I told you so, JR, I'll play this clip back, etc. They haven't done anything about it. It's going to blow. Okay, so what are the things that you actually need to do to fix the system? They're very obvious. You need more capital to back up trades. So I'm not a Ron Paul guy. Ron Paul says, hey, listen, in order to buy a house that's, now this is roughly speaking, but we had him on the show. You can go back and watch that interview. In order to buy a house that's worth $100,000, you need $100,000. Okay, now wait a minute. That's going to slow the economy down a tremendous amount. What I'm saying is, if you're going to make a trade or have a credit default swap, et cetera, whatever it is, and you're a large bank, I need to see 10% of the money. You're going to make a $1 billion trade. I'm not asking for $1 billion that you put up, but I need $100 million in case it goes wrong. And you've got all of these floating around there, okay? Some decent capital requirements. Do they have that right now? No. On these credit default swaps and derivatives, you know how much there is in the credit default swaps right now in the last quarter? It's a $34 trillion market. They have you think they got the money to back up $34 trillion worth of bets that they made? They don't have that. And so if the bets go south, things go wrong by only a couple percentage points, then you turn around and you go, oh, well, you didn't require the capital, so I didn't have it. Oh, okay, well, things went wrong. Okay, well, then I guess the taxpayers will have to pay for it. So the second thing that the New York Times points out, and that is obvious, and what I point out is, look, I'll go further. First of all, they point out that the federally insured banks, that ones that backed up by the U.S. taxpayer money, should be more regulated. I say they shouldn't do credit default swap trades at all. Of course, look, if you want to do these crazy trades on your own and you got the money for it, have at it, Hoss. What do I care, okay? But if I'm backing you up and you don't have the money for it and you're taking risks with money I'm going to back up, hell no. No, you don't. You shouldn't be able to do credit default swap trades at all, okay, if you're a federally insured bank, in my opinion, okay, and in the opinion of some of the top economists in the country and in the world. And of course, all of these trades must be listed in an open market. Do you know right now, they do the trades, they don't have the money to back it up, and they don't even tell you. There's no public record of it. I mean, come on, this is insanity. They say, oh, no, you don't understand. These are very complicated trades. If we put it up in the public, you wouldn't understand anyway. Well, try me, okay? So now I say this in regards to the Chris Dodd story. Why? None of these are in the bill. They weren't even in the strong version of the bill. There was the only thing that was in there was, well, let's keep track, the point number 3 I just made, let's keep track of the trades. Okay, so that's how it started, and I was excited about that, okay? Then they watered it down to, well, let's keep track of only 10% of the trades. They created these giant loopholes. No, if you're outside the country, we don't have to keep track of it. If you do this, we don't have to keep track of it, etc. So then in the end, you were keeping track of 10% of the credit default swaps. And that's what's in the current bill. Okay, so it doesn't take care of the derivatives, which is the massive problem. Warren Buffett called them weapons of financial mass destruction. Okay, and he did that. He said that years ago, and nobody listens. Soros says the same thing. Every one of the top investors that knows this stuff inside and out, they all say the same thing. Okay, these things are going to blow. And now you don't have any regulation of the derivatives. You don't have any of the other strong parts of the bill that we talked about earlier. And you don't have an independent consumer financial protection agency that's going to be able to look out for you and I. So what do you have? Let me be polite about it. You got squat. Okay, this thing's a piece of garbage, and this is supposed to be financial reform. Corporate America has completely captured the United States Senate and pretty much the entire United States government. Until you do reform of how these guys get elected, they will always serve their corporate overlords. They're the ones that pay them. You don't believe me? Wait till I come back in the next segment with the next story. Guess who left the Treasury and where he went? It's only exactly what I've been telling you. All right, let's come back and do that story. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. I have been telling you for a long time about what is the implicit bribe of government officials. That, hey, if you play ball, later you get a great job with lobbyists, and that'll pay you a lot of money, as long as you don't actually regulate some of the top companies in the country, whether it's financial reform in the banks or whether it's health reform in the insurance companies and the drug companies, etc. In fact, I wrote the implicit bribe of government officials just, I believe, last week. Okay, wrote an article about that. That's on our website, theyoungturks.com. And guess what happened this week? Damon Munches, who was one of the Treasury's chief negotiators with the House Financial Services Committee, so a guy who knows all the intimate details of the negotiation between the House and the senators, etc., and the congressmen, he left the Treasury Department. You want to guess where he went? Yeah, he went to a lobbyist group. Huh, weird. It's called the Cyprus Group. In fact, the Cyprus Group brags that they not only have Damon Munches, who was a critical player in Tim Geithner's Treasury Department, but they also have on their board now, or in their company, Jeb Mason, who served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Business Affairs under Secretary Paulson. In fact, they have 4 critical ex-Treasury people from the last 4 administrations. They've got it covered. And they explain to their prospective clients, the Cyprus Advisory provides institutional investment managers with actionable intelligence, I love that, and analysis of political processes with outcome-specific probability and immediate market relevance. Let me put on my decoder ring for you. The translation of that is, we got the inside guys that know exactly what's going on, and they're going to tell you what regulations might or might not happen, and so you can make money off of it. Okay? So there's a couple of different angles to that. So one is, hey, we got the inside guys that are going to help you kill reform. The other is, well, whether it's going to happen or not, these guys know. So you'll at least be able to bet accordingly and make money off of it. So what are the different advantages of buying a guy like Damon Munches? Well, you get information. You get information on the White House plans. He was the guy who was the liaison between the White House and Congress. So he knows exactly what the White House actually intends to do, what reform they're privately for, because what they say publicly is a whole different matter than what they're pushing for privately. Number 2, he knows the intentions of all those representatives, because he's the one dealing with them. He knows, hey, Senator X is on board, but Senator Y is a problem, and Representative Z, oh, well, we can give him money and flip him over to our side. He knows all of that. So they buy invaluable information from him. The second thing that he's going to do is, and this is a great little trick. Now, remember, Obama, when he came in, he said, no more lobbyists working for us, and if you work for us, it it'll take you 2 years after you leave to be able to work as a lobbyist lobbying the White House. Wait a minute, did you catch that? Lobbying the White House. So Damon will not be lobbying the White House, he'll be lobbying Congress. That's what you call a gigantic loophole that allows you to do exactly what you wanted anyway. Okay? So point number 2, they get the advantage of lobbying Congress with Damon, with people he knows, is familiar with, they trust him, so he's going to come in and say, Representative King. You know, he had the great speech last week, Steve King did, you got to trust the lobbyists. But if they lie to me, well, then that might be an issue. But we need their advice and counsel. So he's going to come up and say, Representative King, come on, I'm going to tell you the reality, I'm going to give you the real facts, vote with us. Point number 3, and this is the most important point, goes right back to the beginning. It's the implicit bribe. Even if he doesn't do any lobbying, even if he doesn't give him any information, the whole time Damon's in the Treasury Department, supposedly doing financial reform, fighting for financial reform, he's thinking, I can't wait to get paid by Cyprus. If it's not Cyprus, it's going to be another lobbying group, but somebody's going to give me a whole lot of cash, and they did. He's the head of their New York division now. And they have not released what his salary is. I can guarantee you it's a hell of a lot of money, okay? So with that big paycheck sitting out there, you think Damon's going to do real financial reform? Or you think he's going to be like, well, maybe if we write a couple more loopholes, it won't be so bad. Oh, look at this, gigantic paycheck from Cyprus I got. Funny thing happened. But it's not just this guy Damon Munches, and I don't know him, and I don't know his intentions or not his intentions. I know what the results are, right? It's all of them. They all know that had huge paychecks waiting for them if they play ball. Don't you, under any circumstances, actually fight for the American people and actually do financial reform. If you do, nobody's going to pay you. You think if you fight for reform, the Cyprus Group is going to hire you? They're not going to hire you. So how the hell are we supposed to get control of this system when everybody in the government's either bought or is going to get bought? You have to have massive change of the system, campaign finance reform, and real lobbying reform. No, you don't get to work as a lobbyist lobbying this part of the government or that part of the government later. No, if you work in the government, how's this? 5-year ban on any kind of lobbying or advisory position, or whatever. Oh, no, that's too draconian. What can they do? Blah, 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 blah. Hey, why don't they represent the people? How about that? Why don't they work in the government for the people instead of for the corporations? Look, those are just 2 proposals, but we can talk about and have a real discussion about how to do this the real way. But nobody's even having that discussion. It's not a conservative position. It's not a liberal position. What they're doing right here is nothing but corporatist. And we don't stand a chance. And it's, like I said, it's not just liberals. Conservatives don't stand a chance. You think they give a damn about conservative positions? No, they care about their bottom line. That's why they bought all these sons of bitches. Nothing personal. All right, yeah. And wait a minute, didn't we just do a story on Chris Dodd, who's retiring, gutting the real financial reform in the Senate? Huh. Wow, that's weird. You think he's going to get a payout like Damon is? No, probably not. No, he's only senator that was the head of the banking committee. I'm sure he won't work as a lobbyist or advisor at all for millions upon millions of dollars. And I'm sure his motivations are not colored by this. And I'm sure no one in the Treasury Department is colored by these kind of motivations. We're screwed, man. We're totally screwed. I honestly, at this point, I don't know the way out. I mean, how are you going to get that kind of structural change to overturn this completely corrupted system? How are you going to do it? And I got a couple ideas. We've talked about them on the show, but wish us luck. All right. Now, look at this. Look at how haughty the Wall Street guys are. And these are not the people who own the companies. Again, we are the friends of capitalism. If you own a company, I have this crazy idea that you should be able to tell the people who run the company what to do. That's what I was taught as a capitalist, right? Shareholders of Goldman Sachs asked the board of Goldman Sachs to review executive compensation. Today, there's a new story out that the board told them to piss off. Unbelievable. This is unreal, man. They say, oh, you only own the company. We run it. What are you going to do about it? And they're right. They can't do anything about it. You can't fire the board. Isn't this crazy? The shareholders cannot fire the board. Okay? They have these votes. They're not the ones who select the board in the first place. The board selects the board. The board is comprised of all other executives from other companies who are all rubbing each other in a circle of some sort. Okay? And they get either a yes or abstain vote. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds unbelievable, right? They can't vote no on a board. So if the shareholders, the people who own the company, say, hey, look, I'd like to fire that board member because he's given all my money to the executives, they can't do it. They can abstain from the vote. This is nuts, man. This is absolutely nuts. This is not capitalism. This is an oligarchy. I mean, these are a couple of guys at the top that have totally jerry-rigged the system in their favor. So Goldman Sachs says to their owners, sad day for you. No, we're going to keep taking as much money as we like. The executives who run this place. And the board. Okay, all right. Sad day for Goldman Sachs owners. So then you move to a story out of The Independent. Apparently these financial executives meet twice a year, and they met recently. And the European banks asked the American banks, hey, listen, we're catching a lot of heat here, man. And we're catching a little bit more heat than you guys are in America. Because you guys did a great job of buying your politicians. Nicely done. Tell us how you did that later. And so maybe we should be a little bit more responsive to our shareholders, to people who own these banks. And the guys at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley said, shareholders and the government get less money for the executives. You're crazy. Get out of here. If you believe this story, and it's reported by Margarita Pagano, the business editor for The Independent, they said, we don't do that in America. We consider that socialist. So get this twist of logic. Because one of the proposals is that, hey, instead of taking 50% of the money that comes in and giving it out in compensation, okay, whether it's bonuses or salaries, maybe we should give more to the shareholders and only take, for example, they've already gone towards 40% because everybody's so mad, right? Maybe we should take less of the money for ourselves and give more to the owners of the company. And American bankers call that socialist. How is it socialist to have the guy who owns the company make the money from the company? How's that socialist? It's crazy, man. I can't say crazy enough. So, no, the American bankers dismissed the European bankers out of hand. They're like, no, we're not doing any of that. We're not going to limit our pay. We're not going to do anything. As I was investigating this story, I read a little bit more about Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and how he only took $9 million bonus this year. The business reporters, with a straight face, one from CNN and another one, I believe, from Associated Press. The second one, I'm not sure exactly what it was Associated Press. That's right. So with both those things, they said that Blankfein's compensation was shockingly low. Shockingly low, only $9 million. Well, maybe it is shockingly low because before the crisis happened and everything blew up, Blankfein had already put away $68 million in compensation. Now, one of the owners of Goldman Sachs is Warren Buffett, and not a guy who is unfamiliar with the process, right, and knows how to make money. And today, all these things happening on the same day. It's interesting, and around the same last couple of days, over the weekend and today. Warren Buffett came out and said, look, no, you should pay the shareholders, of course. And if something blows up, if you destroy the company, right now, the guys who are suffering are either the shareholders or the taxpayers, and the CEOs get to keep all their money. And all the executives get to keep all their money, and the board gets to keep their money. He's like, that's reverse. That's crazy. That's on its head. So let me give you some quotes from Buffett. He said, in my view, a board of directors of a huge financial institution is derelict if it does not insist that its CEO bear full responsibility for risk control. If he's incapable of handling that job, he should look for other employment. And if he fails at it, with the government thereupon required to step in with funds or guarantees, the financial consequences for him and his board should be severe. Of course. No, but instead what they do is they take the money, in short-term bonuses, salaries, compensation, etc. And then when it blows up, they go, "Oh, you can't touch my money. You can't touch my money. Why are you grabbing me? Why are you grabbing me?" Okay? The money's already gone. What Buffett is saying, what apparently some of the European banks are saying, and what a lot of the progressives in the U.S. are saying is, hey, listen, why don't we structure it so that they have the incentive to make sure the company does not fail? That if the company does well, they get their money, okay? And if they make a lot of money for the company and the shareholders, and they do it in a way that doesn't endanger the taxpayers or anything else, great, great, great. We want that, right? We want the system to work. We want to make a lot of money. We're Americans, okay? Okay, so then they get their money out. But do it long term so that if the company blows up, then they don't get their money out. That they lose their money first because they're the ones running the company. Can't everybody agree to that? Of course they can. So if you asked, average American, you explain this whole thing, or anybody in the world, I would expect that you would get about 98% agreement on this. All the way from the very richest, Warren Buffett, to the very poorest. The only guys who don't agree are the ones in charge of the companies now, who don't have to be responsible to their shareholders or the taxpayers, and who buy the lobbyists to buy the politicians. So they've jerry-rigged the system, and these couple of, I don't know, how many, couple of dozen, couple of hundred guys, at most a couple of thousand guys, have set up the system where they're not going to let you do it under any circumstances. They're not going to let you regulate. They're not going to let you give more power to the shareholders. They're just going to get, There Will Be Blood, I believe that was the movie. I drink your milkshake. And they've been drinking it for a long time. Are we going to continue to be suckers and let them? Well, probably. Young Turks.